What's My Line? Brought to you by Kellogg's. Kellogg's Cereals. The best to you each morning from Kellogg's of Battle Creek. Now let's all play What's My Line? And now, live from New York, let's meet our What's My Line panel. First, the popular columnist whose voice of Broadway appears in papers coast to coast, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
And on my left, a wonderful game player and a darling person, Martin Gabel.
On my left, a woman who's commuting so much between New York and California that the only time I get a chance to spend a half hour with her is on this program. My Mrs. Arlene Francis.
And now a gentleman who, apart from my son, has two of the nicest young men in his family I have ever met. Christopher and Jonathan, and his name is Bennett Cerf.
And now, let me introduce you to our rich, golden, mellow panel moderator, John Charles Davis.
Can't figure out whether I'm a salad dressing or a hair tonic. Must be one or the other. Martin, it's nice to have you with us again, sir.
Glad to be here, John. Thank
Trust you enjoy yourself for the next half hour. We'd like you to. We have some very interesting occupations tonight, and I'm eager to have you tussle with them. We'll also have a famous mystery guest before my friends on the panel a little bit later in the program, and we'll meet our first challenger after this word. Now to meet our first challenger. Will you enter and sign in, please? Mr. X. How do you do, sir?
Fine,
Nice
thank
to see
you.
you. Would you be good enough to tell us where you're from?
Ventura, California.
Ventura, California.
Yes, sir.
Would you locate that for me? Because I'm not too sure of my California geography yet.
Well, that's just a little south of Santa Barbara.
A little south of
A
Santa
little
Barbara.
north of Los Angeles.
That's beautiful country. That I know. Santa Barbara's lovely. Well, may I, Mr. X, present our panel? Now, would you join me over here? You know how we keep score, sir?
I do, yes.
In that event, we'll let the audience in the theater and the audience at home know exactly what your line is. I think, panel, that the reasons why we've asked our guest to sign in as Mr. X are reasonably obvious, so I won't go into them. We will, however, be glad to tell you that our guest is self-employed and deals in a service. And let's begin the general questioning with Dorothy Kilgallen.
Mr. X, do you have any connection at all with the entertainment field?
Yes.
Do you have any connection with motion pictures?
Yes.
May I assume that you are part of the production end rather than a performer?
Rather than a performer.
Well, I mean, that I'm including writer, director, anything that is not before the camera.
But I think in terms of the question as it's specifically asked, why, we will put over one no. That's 1 down and 9 to go, Mr. K.
Oh, in other words, he is a performer.
That's correct.
Yes.
Do you sometimes perform rather than always, Mr. X?
Well, most of the time.
Most of the time. Is it a...
You think I should give you a yes or no to that, Martin? I mean, that's 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you perform before cameras that may be used in television as well as motion pictures?
Yes.
Do you perform, since your name was Mr. X on there, is it possible that you perform in a television series?
No.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. X, is your name known to the general public? Is that why we have you marked as Mr. X? Would the general public be apt to know your name?
I would say yes. Mm-hmm.
Are you at the present time making any motion picture for one of the big studios?
No.
4 down and 6 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Well, if the general public would know your name, Mr. X, why are we so stupid?
That is a very moot point.
No, I would say this, Dorothy, to put your mind at rest. When the name is revealed, you'll know it, too.
When you appear before the camera or before the public in your appearances, are you usually disguised in some fashion?
No.
No, I will say here, with our guest's permission, I wouldn't say disguise. By the same token, if your question had its intent to determine whether our guest worked in, for instance, the normal street clothes, the answer would then have to be no, he doesn't. So we'll give you
He could be disguised by clothing or by
Well, what I'm trying to say,
makeup or
Dorothy, is
mask.
we'll give you a qualified yes, in that our guest does not work in a normal suit. He works in something that would perhaps identify him and which could be considered as in some way disguising him in terms of his present appearance, shall we say.
Do you work in either a doctor suit or a police suit?
No.
5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Gabel. Is your principal performing career in television, Mr. X?
No.
6 down and 4 to go, Miss Francis.
But is your principal performing career in motion pictures?
No.
7 down and 3 to go, Mr. Cerf. Now, that is the name of the garden path up which you've all been walking so
Mr. X.
diligently for the last few minutes.
Mr. X, does your work bring you into any proximity whatever to animals of any kind? Birds
yes.
or animals? Do you do anything special with your voice occasionally that might imitate sounds of animals or birds?
No.
No, that's 8 down and 2 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
But he comes and comes.
But he
Are
does
you
come in
primarily in some form of entertainment other than motion pictures or television? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Yes.
Something to do with animals, Dorothy. Circus or...
No call for a conference, please. Let's not turn this into a 3-ring one, please.
Accepting the suggestions of my colleagues, I will ask you, are you connected with a circus?
Yes.
Not
Clyde Beatty.
I thought Mr. Cerf was going to get me there for a while.
Well, I have a
to me.
question. I thought Clyde Beatty was much older.
Well, I must say,
His
Dorothy...
lions and tigers are.
His lions and tigers. No, I must say with Dorothy that I've known this name for all my years in America. Clyde Beatty is, you know, the one man who could get in there with those Bengal tigers and those Numidian lions.
That's right.
And he said, "Sit." And they all started running at him. Now, actually, I think probably everybody on the panel knows, but the Cole Brothers Circus is going to come to New York, and it'll be in the Coliseum from November
29th.
29th through the first of the year, right?
Right, yes.
And it's the first time we've had a circus over the Christmas holiday period in New York since, I think, the 1800s, and it ought to be just great for the youngsters.
I think so,
It's
yes.
a great time for a circus to be here. When did you have your first tussle with the young
Lions
four-legged
and-
types there, yeah?
Oh, gee, I started way back in 1922.
How old were you then, Clyde?
16.
When's the first time you had any trouble with them, you know, real trouble?
About 2 years after that.
About 2 years
First time,
after?
yes.
What happened then?
Well, a Black Panther that I was training sprang on me and gave me quite a going over.
Did he give you back?
Oh, yes.
Very rough time.
Spent about 6 weeks in the hospital.
Can I
Yes,
ask you a question? I might be a little person. Do you ever bite them back when they bite you?
I like it sometimes.
But thanks very much for being...
John, I'd like to know, is it Clyde Beatty or Beatty?
Beatty.
Beatty?
Played by...
It's Warren Beatty, Clyde Beatty, isn't that right?
No, Clyde Beatty.
Oh, it's Beatty, too?
Clyde Beatty, yes.
And if a lion is at him, it's Clyde Beatty.
We set that up for you, didn't we?
And we've now had a splendid example of what can happen to very nice people after 13 years of association with Bennett Cerf. Clyde, thanks very much.
Thank
and I
you,
know
Mr.
that the kids of New York are going to be tickled to death about
Thank
you all
you.
being here over Christmas.
Thank you.
Good to see you. And now to meet our second challenger. Will you enter and sign in, please? Donna Fultz, right?
Yes.
Miss or Mrs. Fultz?
Mrs.
Mrs. Fultz, where are you from?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes.
Nice to have you with us. Mrs. Fultz, may I present the panel? Will you join me over here, please? You know how we keep score?
Yes.
Fine, then we'll let the audience in the theater and the audience at home know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, we can tell you that Mrs. Fultz is salaried and deals in a service. And let's begin the general questioning with Bennett Cerf.
Mrs. Fultz, anybody ever say to you, with all life faults, I love thee still?
That is what John meant, Bennett.
Yes, I know.
Bennett's going to Massachusetts and New Hampshire this week, which might chase the Pilgrim Fathers all the way back to the British shores. I have an old prep school, as you all know, Tilton, and I wrote him and told him he's coming. Duck.
Mrs. Fultz, you perform a service. Is this service performed for adult human beings?
Yes, it is.
Does the service bring you into direct contact with the people you are performing the service for?
Occasionally.
Do you wear an ordinary costume while you're performing the service? That is, a costume that would not distinguish you from other people in the street at that time.
I would think so.
Does the service bring you into physical contact at any time with the people that are benefiting from your services?
We have a small conference, if we may. Thank you very much.
He's going to try out that physical contact.
Bennett, we've given very earnest consideration to
noticed.
your question.
Yes.
And we think it's a very fine question. And we commend you for asking it. And we give you a no answer. That's one down and 9 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
What did Bennett just get a no to?
To the physical contact is a necessary accompaniment to the service.
Mrs. Fultz, would you say that your work was more mental than physical?
Yes.
Would anyone on this panel benefit by it if we were in the right area?
Oh, yes, certainly, they could.
Could, I see. Are people made more attractive or useful members of society by what you do?
There are circumstances in which we might agree that an end result might be one of those two courses, yes.
I don't think it would make them more attractive,
But useful.
but useful.
Yes, useful. You see, you gave a bit of information then that we shouldn't have given.
Is it necessary for you to speak in performing your service?
Yes.
Do you give information?
No.
No, not specifically. And actually, the issue of speaking, we would consider it reasonable and normal that there might be some speaking necessary, but we don't say that it's integral.
No.
All right,
Salary.
Mr. Gabel?
Am I right in thinking that you work for a profit-making organization?
Yes.
Oklahoma is a great oil state, among its other many virtues. Do you have anything to do with the oil business?
No.
Outside of getting up oily, no. That's 3 down and 7 to go.
Rubbed off on us all.
Miss Bradford.
Miss Fultz, do you work indoors?
Yes.
Do you use anything in your work other than yourself in your job?
Yes.
Is it something that is manipulated by hand?
Yes.
Is it in the realm... Is it anything that might operate electrically?
Yes.
I don't know where I am. Is it something that would reflect anything of the person that you are interviewing or in association with?
What?
I don't know.
Thank you very much, Martin Gabel. What? Now, the use of an implement, which
Yes.
I think you have in mind here,
Would
might...
it reflect anything of the person that she might have some contact with?
Well, I think we could agree it could reflect, yes, if properly
Is
put
it
to
something
use.
other than a typewriter?
Yes.
Is it something, is it a development within the last 10 years?
No.
That's 4 down and 6 to go. I'm going to give you 1 more minute because you're not close.
Could this thing that you use be used in a bank?
Yes.
Does the work that you do have anything to do in any way with money? I mean, other than taking a salary for it.
Let me have a small conference again. Yes, money could be involved.
Money would be used in
Could
this,
be.
other than just getting salary. Do you work for either a bank or a Wall Street house or brokerage house, bond house?
No. 5 down and 5 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Mrs. Foltz, could your work be performed by a man?
Yes.
Is it frequently performed by a man?
Yes.
Does it have anything to do with a restaurant or nightclub?
No.
No. 6 down and 4 to go. I'm going to put all the cards up because you haven't gotten on the track of this. Actually, Mrs. Foltz is probably one of the most attractive private detectives you've ever met. What's the electrical device job? Uses a camera, does insurance, criminal, and sometimes domestic work, and uses a camera quite frequently, as well as typewriters and other stuff. Is licensed with the, is it Bays?
Bays Detective
The Bays
Agency.
Detective Agency, licensed private detective.
Goodness,
And
we were thrown off by the private enterprise, private
that's,
base.
yeah, actually, I think they did throw you. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed your visit with us.
Thank you very much.
We'll meet tonight's mystery guest in just a moment, but first, here is a word from our sponsor. And now we come to the special feature of our program, for which, as you all know, the panel is always blindfolded. Are those blindfolds in place, panel?
Yes,
Yes,
indeed.
ready to meet our mystery challenger? All right, will you enter and sign in, please? All right. As you know, panel, a different form of questioning, one at a time, in turn, moving clockwise, and we'll begin with Arlene Francis.
Are you now or have you ever been associated with the New York Theater?
Yes.
Mr. Cerf.
Are you appearing at the present time in one of the Broadway plays?
Yes.
Miss Kilgallen.
Is it a drama as opposed to a musical or comedy?
Yes.
Mr.
What?
Yes. Mr.
Yes.
Gabel.
Has it opened within the last 3 weeks?
Yes.
Miss Francis.
Has it anything to do with one of the great art connoisseurs of this century?
Yes.
Is it Monsieur Duveen, otherwise known as Lord Pengo, Charles Boyer?
That's right. Well, that's bad luck. That's bad luck. They got out of the theater right away. It is Lord Pengo, and of course it's the fabulous story of Lord Duveen, who probably, I guess you know more about this subject now, Charles, than the rest of us, but he probably is responsible for many of the great collections of art.
Oh, yes, he is.
He was not only a great connoisseur in his field, but was a most persuasive gentleman when he was getting other people to
Well, the
think.
National Gallery in Washington was his idea, John, and he persuaded Andrew Mellon to put up the money and put his collection, build the building and put up. And many of the great masterpieces which we have in this country are due to the persuasiveness of Lord Duveen. And I may say, brilliantly played by Charles Boyer. I saw it the other night, and a marvelous play by Sam Behrman.
Yes,
I really had a wonderful evening.
There's a great story, Charles, that you probably know about Lord Duveen. He was selling a picture to a very rich man. The man said, "How much is this picture?" And Duveen very offhandedly said, 85,000. And the American man said, "Pounds?" And Duveen said, "Certainly."
And that's probably when the pound...
almost the same joke in the
That's
play.
You have it? That's when the pound was $5, too, not $2.80.
Worth $4.86 in those days, yeah.
Well, I think it's always a happy day when you come back to Broadway to see us.
Well, it's a very happy day for me always.
And I'm glad you have so fine a vehicle to be in, too.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming to see us again.
Thank
What's
you,
My
sir.
Life? By and large, panel, you've done very well so far tonight. We'll have another contestant after this word from our alternate sponsor. And now, let's meet a final contestant. Will you enter and sign in, please? T.T. Winter, right? Mr. Winter, where are you from?
Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Winter is from Altoona, Pennsylvania. We're a bit short of time. May I present the panel very quickly? And then when you join me over here, do you know how we keep score?
Yes.
Fine. We'll let the audience at home, the audience in the theater know exactly what your line is. All right. Panel, we can tell you that Mr. Winter is self-employed and deals in a service. And let's begin the questioning with Martin Gabel.
Mr. Winter, you're dressed in a very modern, very attractive, very go-ahead way. Have you anything to do with the world of music?
Yes.
Are you a band leader?
Yes.
You're kidding! Come on, Martin.
I'm afraid he is. Does anybody guess?
I think yes. Hasn't he played at the White House?
Last Monday. Very good, Dorothy. That's wonderful.
I want you to know that the president didn't tell me, John.
John, Altoona, Pennsylvania threw me off, but Martin got me right back on.
Right back on.
He
Excellent.
groomed me.
That's what he does for me all the time, Dorothy.
And Mr. Winter has that very modern, very Peter Duchin sort of dress, you know, with the Edwardian cuffs and everything. And I figured he was hip.
And both of them fine young luminaries showing up on our
Please.
You know, the thing, we pushed that P.T. through fast, so you wouldn't know Paul. We thought Paul would...
Well, we could think it was PT 109 when he signed it.
But actually, a quite remarkable and though short career. Actually, Paul and, it's 7 of them. 6 in the group. They all were going to college in the Chicago area, got together, and you were sent to South America, Latin America. Right. With what? Was it not too long ago, was it?
No, in the between February and August of this year.
And it was just, they did a wonderful job as ambassadors for these great United States of ours. And then, I think, learned about a thing called Bossa Nova, which I must admit I don't understand. What is Bossa Nova?
Well, Bossa Nova is a new music that has come from Brazil that includes very distinctive new melodies and rhythms.
It's like a slow samba, isn't it?
Jazz
Some of it, yes.
But it's
better
music...
to listen to than to dance to, isn't it? It's not really dance music.
Actually, the dancing they do to it is completely improvised in Brazil.
It's not...
Well, I wouldn't attempt to even paraphrase the reaction of Mrs. Kennedy, our First Lady, last Monday, but everybody who reads the papers knows that it was just great. She was just as excited about Paul and his aggregation as she could be, and thanks for being our guest. It's lovely to have had you with us, Paul. Once again, Martin, it's nice to have had you with us. Hope we have the pleasure again very soon. Good night, Dorothy Kilgallen.
Good night, John. Good night, Martin. Come again, please.
Thank you. Good night, Dorothy. Arlene, see you in California.
Once again, I would like to say it's nice to have you with me. Oh, no. Good night.
Good night, John. How's the baby, John?
Just fine. Couldn't be better. Bennett will be in Peabody, Massachusetts, and Manchester and Concord, New Hampshire this week. So I hope you all stay home. You all get out to see him. And thanks very much for being with us on What's My Line.
CBS Television Network production in association with Mark Goodson and Bill Cotton. Johnny Olson speaking.